go to the folder and you'll see that there is a spreadsheet. I recommend everyone to download that spreadsheet. I don't know who on the team will probably lead the charge or will actually want to be the person to add the user stories. But when you break into your teams, you'll need one person to use that document, share the screen, and be able to add the user stories there. So it's called user story template. And you'll see that it already has one example for you. And that's the expectation. That's the professional expectation that you would go in and starting in row 3, add as many user stories as you would like, as many user stories as you can come up with. Now, remember, those user stories should be well formed. The who, what, and why. Have the acceptance criteria so that you can talk about that. And at some point, if not by the end of today, it will probably be tomorrow, though. The environments, the virtual team environments will be set up for you, and you'll be able to go in and you can add some of these user stories there. That will be a portion. We'll tell you you don't have to add all of them, but we want this to look as close as a real project as possible. So one or all of you can take the opportunity to go in and make sure those user stories are added. So does anyone have any questions about this concept of the user stories, what you'll get ready to do? Download it. You eventually break into teams after Ufuk tells you, give you some more directions. And then your main goal today is to add user stories. So yesterday we did spend some time and we talked about, of course, user stories, and we got into the system and we covered all the features of the app studio. We covered all the features of the dev studio. We created a new application. We looked at the application rule. We looked at the situational layer cake that we called it. We saw how when we created something or designed something in the um, App Studio, then we could go into the Dev Studio, go to the Rules Explore, and evaluate those rules. And let's see, what else? That's it. You'll see this use case. So you'll need to open the use case. This is what you'll focus on. This is the use case that we will be working with. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ufuk.
Thank you, Darryl. So, hi together. Yeah, as earlier today summarized, so we will start our project now. First of all, we prepared an interview because in a real world scenario, this interview will be normally happen with a DCO session, for example, that all the product owners, devs, tests, business analysts sit together and gathering all this information, requirements, and writing it down. So for this, we have not the time, so we prepared an interview. We tried, of course, to bring all the information which is important in this interview. Let me share the interview with you.
Yeah,
And
we
in
can see it.
this, perfect. Yeah, so what we did it is, so we tried make an interview with asking questions which we normally ask as a business analyst or requirement analyst to this business SMEs, business owners, product owners, to know what they wanted, what requirement wanted, what they want to build it. So the goal is today is writing the user stories down. Yesterday we learned about user stories. Normally, the user stories is the tool of the developer who work with Pega knows already, or even not with Pega. So if you're a developer, so you will get mostly uh, user stories, but it's not happening always like that. So I work like now in 10 different projects, different subjects, different business areas like insurance, community, public sector, banking, finance, health sector, and sometimes we are getting really good user stories, which is well defined, which we know which is really ready to ready. It's really ready to begin with it, and with all the acceptance criteria, and we can start on it. But mostly, which I work on the project, even we are getting maybe one sentence, and then we should write the acceptance criteria on. So that can be happen also as a developer, even if you're not working as a developer or as a business analyst, that you still need to write down the user stories. And in this exercise, first of all, we will try to write the user stories down and try to make it much as good as possible, of course, with these questions. We have only the questions and the answers, so we will try to get these informations out and write it down. And what the importance is here, the acceptance criteria to be really clearly defined, because not only the developers working with the acceptance criteria, also the testers who testing against it, and it's like a proof for you for your work. So when, for example, the product owner comes after you and say, hey, what you did you implement it, it's looking not so good, a lot of problems are there, a lot of defects, and we are not okay with this. And then you can show your can you open the user story and then show it, "Oh, look, this was the acceptance criteria, and I did it against the acceptance criteria as my implementation. If you forgot to add some points to the acceptance criteria, or you didn't define it yet, then we should work it again. And or if you want a new functionality, then it's a more change request, and that's happened a lot of times. And user stories is really a guarantee for the developers to show the proof, the work, what they did it, because otherwise it's very hard, and then they can then complain always and say, yeah, it's a bug fix. So this is the problem which we have as a developer, that the business side tries everything new what they wanted as a bug, and but this user stories helps you out. That's why you should look into it deeply and make it clear, asking questions back. Like if they're saying, yeah, we want 4 fields, we will want a contact information section. The people should write their names, first name, last name, the address section, and the other informations like birth date, email, and this kind of things. Yeah, then you will ask, of course, should there be a validations of the birth date? For example, can the person can the person 2 years old, 5 years old? What is the minimum age? What is the maximum age? Can we write in the email field another um, different things like numeric things without any at sign, or like kind of thing should be there. Restriction, which fields are mandatory, and this kind of things. Uh, you need to ask and then write it down in the acceptance criteria. Yeah, this is like a small overview about the user stories. And now I hope you open all the interview and you will see it. So this is our interview document. Just want to summarize it, what it's about what we will build it. This is a, as you see, an application abroad for an university. So the good thing is, I guess, most of you is freshly from the university and know how it's working. This was adaptation in Europe. For example, if you want to study abroad, so for, like from a German university, you want to study in Western Europe, Western Europe University, even in the USA. You need to fill some informations, and you will select a university which want to study, and this happens normally very manually. So like with the email, you're writing it down, and then it's happening like one is looking into it and taking sometimes weeks or months that you're getting any answers. So what we want to do is now to make this all the process as something we will bring automation. We are calling digitalization, and because most of the things we can make it faster, and this is all about it, to bring to the university some automation. Here maybe you get some informations like we tried it to make clear what fields we really needed, and tried what is must have, what is nice to have. It's all written in here between the lines. Also, we have also some phrases like minimum level product, which is MLP. First phase, we try to make it like this clear, and yeah. So I hope this information will help for the beginning to write your user stories well defined, and also with the acceptance criteria. This is a sample data which is given by, but of course you can bring more data. So if you have different universities, all this will come. This is just a sample data. So we took 3 locations, but you can also bring your own university and build it for your own university, and also with the subjects. This is you're welcome. So we have not any limitations. It's just a sample data. You can follow this data. This is the informations we needed. If you bring more information, it's also good. And yeah, so when you're writing the user stories, there's not one solution. So as a Pega, I guess Darryl said a lot of times, Pega is a big tool, and you can be creative. Just try to fulfill the requirement. How do you doing it? It's up to you. Um, I guess with writing the user stories, the creativity will come after it when we are doing the implementation.
You were working from a Pega Express delivery approach. You're in the discovery prepare phase. Discovery prepare phase. So you were working in that, building your user stories, and that's really the foundation. So now we're getting ready to move, as I told you, we're going to do this daily. So the iterations are going to move really, really quickly. So now we're going to move more into the prepare build phase of Pega Express delivery approach. And with that, we want to look at, now that you got use cases or user stories, um, what Pega artifacts do we use? What type of DCO, direct capture of objectives, what types of meetings do we have now that we can look at this and say, oh, I can implement this more with this particular step or this stage or this particular artifact. So I have to give you that information. I have to share that with you. And that's what this section is about. It's preparing you for tomorrow morning. You will break into your groups. Someone, an administrator, will set up operator IDs, access groups for you. You will determine the name of your application. You will set the foundation, whether it's a framework or it's an implementation level application that you will create. And then you'll look at your case type. And in a case type, you'll create the initial iteration of your case life cycle. So we have to have a conversation about case types, case life cycles, operator access groups, um, things of that nature. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. And I do encourage you to follow along with me in the demo system so that you can see and feel how to do this. because as I said before, we don't have any exercises. I give you a demo, I give you the isolated skill. Ufuk then says, let me show you how to integrate that into a solution if you get stuck. We'll look at understanding a Pega case type in the case life cycle. We'll look at data modeling for the first time. We'll have two looks at data modeling. This will be the initial look, so you'll know how to build a data model on Monday. And then we'll look at understanding application design. So let's go ahead and dive into that. When we look at a case type in Pega, remember I said that a case type, if I'm looking at Microsoft Office, then a case type would be the PowerPoint, it would be Excel, it would be Access, it would be Word, those major functions of Office, Word, Office. So when you look at that, but from a Pega perspective, we say that a case type is an abstract model of a repeatable business transaction on our platform. So it's something that you're going to do all the time. So for instance, if you're on an airplane or you're working with the airlines, you want to purchase a ticket. That would be in the airline reservation system. That would be ticket purchasing. That would be a case type that I would want to do. If, for instance, I wanted to attend some type of concert, so event management system would then have a case type that says purchase an event, and would have a list of events that you would want to purchase and different events that you may want to go to. So get an idea of when you're thinking of your user stories, which ones would be germane for them to become case types. It's how we automate work in Pega. And I'll show you again, when we talk about work, it's that work dash class that we're going to look at. So when I talk about a case type, I'm talking about a business transaction. I'm talking about the case life cycle. I'm talking about a class. I'm talking about work. Those are all the same names for what we're talking about, this abstract model. So what's the purpose of a case type? It's to represent a business transaction. Whatever I need to carry out, that's what I'm needing to do. It's going to be defined by the case life cycle, by those stages, processes, and steps. What do I do first? What do I do second? What do I do third? What items or processes can I do in parallel? What items do I have to wait on? What items are human interactions to where I need information given to me, where there's a pause in my flow to allow me to enter information, capture that, and Pega then will marshal that into a table row. So how do I model my case data? We create a case type because we want to manage case data. That's what we do it for. So when we look at case management, again, it's a business transaction. It's this whole idea of how do I manage the life cycle? How do I manage the flow? How do I look at my business processes and make sure that they reflect the work that needs to be done? So when we look at this, these are stages. Let me ask you guys a question, see if you remembered from yesterday. How many stages do you see? And you can put it in chat, or you can um, be vocal if you like. How many stages do you see? We want you to get used to identifying those, right? How many processes do you see? How many processes? So there are 3 stages. How many processes in total? So let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many parallel processes do you see? Are you guys able to see that? Or you may have to look on your own document. Yeah, so there's 1 parallel process. Now, you hadn't seen that before. So what does a parallel process indicate? It indicates in Pega that I can kick off both of those processes under that stage, right, within that given time at the same time. When would I do that? Why would I do that? I would do that if, for instance, yes, Muhammad, you have a question,
Oh,
or you give me high
yeah,
five.
I think you were, sorry, yeah, I think you were getting to it, but I just, about the parallels. So would it mean that, it's hard to read, but IT setup and faculty setup would be the two in
Yeah,
parallel?
yeah. So
Okay.
that's facilities setup and
Oh,
IT
I see.
setup, right?
Okay.
Facilities and setup. If you think about it from a work effort perspective, it's going to two separate departments, and they could be doing work on this case at the same time. I don't have to wait for facilities to finish before IT setup and finish. In other words, someone is coming in and it's a new employee, and the employee needs to know where to sit, and that employee also needs the equipment, their laptop. Well, one doesn't come before the other; they can happen simultaneously. So in Pega, I can do that by saying for this process with these three steps, for instance, facility, they need to select seating, select an office, and then finish the facility setup. For IT, it's select hardware, select software package, and then get it approved. There's no dependencies there. So in that case, it's a good example or it's a good model to say these processes within the setup stage can happen simultaneously at the same time. So think about how that happens though in a database. Think about it from a technical perspective. You talk about multi-threaded instances happening. You have this case type, but the case type is no more than an object that's in memory. And when it's not in memory, where does the case type live? It's marshaled into a table row. Okay. So let's say that person A from facility, he logs on, looks in his work list and says, hey, there's work for me to do. And let's say at the same time, the IT setup person logs into what we call their work list and they say, hey, here's work for me to do. Well, both of them can bring up the information, and probably the locking strategy says what? First time they bring it up is just read only. So both of them can look at the same view of that record in the database table simultaneously from their own UI. And then once they start working on it, and if I need to update it, well, like any other database application, um, it gets unlocked, gets modified, and then it gets written back. Now, if the IT comes after them and there's some information that they've changed that may be read only that they can see, then they may see if they say, well, I need to update something, it may tell them, then you need to refresh your record, and then you can see the updated information, and then it shows it to you. Okay. So in parallel doesn't mean that the record itself is being written at the same time. We still have locking strategies that come into play. It simply says that it can be viewable at the same time and modifiable at the same time. And we have ways to manage that so that we manage the integrity of the data. Did that answer your question, Muhammad?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So we see a lot going on when it talks about case management. Primary task, the happy path, any exceptions that we may have. You see, here's an approved rejection exception. So when we talk about what is a stage, what is a process, what is a step, okay, then what we really want to look at is there a change in ownership? That's one way of looking at a stage. Is there a change in ownership? Or is there a change in status? Maybe it moves from opening to pending. Or maybe it's a logical grouping of processes that need to be under that same stage. But it's Pega's high level grouping when we talk about a stage. When we talk about a process, the process simply says um, these are groups of steps that go together. So when you think of your use cases, you need to think of, is what we're trying to do a process? Is it a granular step? Or is it a broader case type? And how do they interrelate with each other? And what's the order that I should put them in? And are they part of the happy path? Remember, we talked about yesterday the happy path where it starts at one stage, then it continues because the chevron gives you a little greater than sign, goes up, then it starts and it goes up. So that's considered the happy path. And then we have an alternate that we can go to say if it's an exception, it's not part of the happy path, then I can go here. And when we talk about the steps, these are the smallest elements that we find in our case lifecycle. And that's what we're going to get ready to do now. We're going to take a dive, we're going to take a deep dive into looking at these in the exercise environment. So give me a thumbs up if you have an exercise environment up and running, because I want you to walk through these with me, okay? And you don't necessarily have to have this one, but you can have one that has at least 2 or 3 stages. And I'll ask a lot of questions. I want to get feedback, and we'll talk about what we have here. So how many, let me come back here. So it's easy to see how many case types that we have, but you're going to have to create your own case type. Can someone instruct me where to go to create a new case type on App Studio? And you either can chat with me or you can verbalize it. You see anywhere on the screen where I can create a new case type?
At the top right, it says new.
Top right.
That's right. So go to the top right. So when you get ready to work on your project, you'll have to do this. All right. So you go to the top right and you want to create a new case type. So let's see what happens when I create a new case type. It pops up, says enter case type. So I want to call this, just to stay in step with what we're doing here, rental reservation, vehicle reservation, air reservation. Now let's say hotel. Okay. Let's look at it from a technical perspective. I open it up and it says I can create a data model with my spreadsheet, but you'd have to know the format. And I can apply it to different layers if I know what I want to do. But we're going to leave it at the default here. Click on next. Now it's going to create a case type. Remember what I said in Pega, many terms for one type of artifact, depending upon how you're looking at it. It's a case type that's being created from the App Explorer. That's a business design term. It could also be called a business transaction. It could also be called an abstract model. From a technical perspective, I can go to the Dev Studio and I can see the class that's created for the implementation. And I can go further and say it's the work dash class, because I know in Pega, there's a naming pattern that I set up to make it a work dash class. And that's where all my case types are. So when you get ready to set up your system tomorrow and you identify your case type, that's how easy it is to create a case type. Now, it gives you a simple one stage, one step, one process. Remember I said the other day, that's the initialization, so you don't want to delete that one. Leave that one alone. If you needed to create another stage, then you can go in and you can create another stage and then start your process. I typically tell people, leave this one alone, let it be its own stage, start with your use cases here, and then you can create a stage. Okay. Let's also take a look at what if I wanted to do it from Dev Studio. Let's go over to Dev Studio. Give me a thumbs up if you created your case type. I got some people giving me a real thumbs up. Nader, thank you. You gave me a real thumbs up. Okay. So you come over and you create come over to Dev Studio, and I go to case types, and I come here to create a case type. So let's create another case type, just so you know how to create it. And doesn't matter if you create it in the App Studio, doesn't matter if you create it in Dev Studio, just to know these are the only two ways to create a case type in Pega. So I come here, hotel reservations, I don't know, water reservations. Now you see a bit more technical information. Again, here's this concept of directed inheritance, pattern inheritance. We'll talk about that later on. But for right now, we'll let this default simply says we use both of these. They'll be exactly the same. It goes into a rule set. It's where rules are being stored. And this is the version. So let's go ahead and submit it. And you'll see that it's going to create a case type just like it did in App Studio, if we don't get any errors. All right, so you see here's hotel reservation, rental reservation, vehicle reservation, water reservation, and it creates the initial case life cycle. Very easy to do in Pega, but let's look to see what classes were implemented for the case types. If I have two case types that I've created, how many classes will be created? Does anybody remember how many classes will be implemented for each case type? Guessing is allowed. I only told you one or two times yesterday. Laxmi, how many classes do you think will be created? I see your audio is, I don't know if your audio is working. I don't see any audio. Well, yeah, I don't see any audio. Hamraj, how many classes will be created?
One.
I'll give you another guess. So I created two case types. How many classes do you think would be implemented?
Oh, like total?
Yeah, in total.
I would say two.
Two. Yeah.
One each.
It'll be two. Yeah. So one class per case type. And which Explorer do I go to see that view, the class view? Which Explorer do I go to?
The app on the left side.
There we go. I go to the App Explorer. Okay, thank you, Humraj. So let's go to the App Explorer. So the App Explorer, the leaves indicate the classes. So here's my hotel reservation. Here's my water reservation. Are they siblings to each other? Are they siblings?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Notice that they're on the same level. Who's the parent? Or what's the name of the parent? Can someone tell me?
Tour car rentals work.
There we go. Yeah, this is the work class. This is the parent work class. So here's the parent. Pega always establishes that same pattern. When you create a case type, the parent ending token is work. Only case types can be created at the work level. I cannot create a case type that is not a work class because it is the work to be done. And it uses that naming pattern convention. So if you're trying to find a rule that's associated with a certain case type, you can come to a class and you can expand it, and then you can start looking for it if you're familiar with the categories and if you're familiar with the rule type that it would create. So when I created a case type, it went in and it created all of these rules for me. If you want to see the actual name of the class, you click on the class and you'll see the full name. It's tour-car rentals-work-hotel reservation. All right, so some of you may want to create something else. Now, notice you said these are siblings. These are all on the same level. But if I go back to my case type view, vehicle is shown as a child. So I can have a physical view that shows that the classes are siblings, all on the same level, but I can have a design view that shows that vehicle for the design of the rental reservation and the relationship, I want it to be a parent-child relationship. Now that's really interesting. You really have the same example that you may have if you look at database tables. Database tables, you have physical tables, and then you can have what? A logical view of tables, and it could be a combination. They could be seen differently. That's the same concept here. So the reason that they actually do this is because they wanted to use rental reservation information, and then they wanted to pass that information off to another case type, but to have a parent-child relationship to make that happen. You may want to do that in your use cases. You may want to have two different you may want to have two different case types, and in building it, they may be siblings, but in the implementation of it from a design standpoint, it makes sense that for this application, then the second case type should be a child to it, so you could pass information to it. And it can complete its process. Once the child completes the process, then it can go back to the parent and then complete the process there. A case type. A case type. Now, the other thing that I want you to realize that when a case type is created, remember we created so that we can have case data. How do I look to see where's the table for that case data? Well, if you come to the class and you right click on it, now my right click is not working. Oh, there it is. And if you go to definition, come on, there we go. It gives you a lot of information here, but what we want to focus on at the bottom is click on test connection. Now, I know we did this yesterday, but I just want to make sure that you're clear so you understand when you create your case types tomorrow, you understand what's actually going on and you're comfortable with doing it. So you see that this class is mapped to this table. It's in the Pega database .pc _tour car rentals _work at the Pega data. Now, this is important because when you get to your reporting, you have to know which table that you're going against. And so you'll associate the class with that table to know which one that you're going against. So let's go take a look at it. If you go to configure, let's get into configure, go to your data model. From your data model, go to classes and properties. From classes and properties, now let's go to your database class mapping. Click there. Every time you create a case type, you can always go here and you can see all of your classes, all the tables that they're mapped to, the number of columns that are there, and the database that is from. Now, I'll come back and show you later on if I want to go to an external table in an external database that's known to Pega, I can also map them in, create a class, and now I have a class representing that table, and I can point to it. But that's a data class, that's not a work class. What you created was a work class, but this work class needs a database table so that it can hold the case data. That's the whole point that I want you to understand when you're going in and you're creating this particular case type. All right, any questions about a case type? Everyone would be comfortable tomorrow when it's time to create a case type to go and create it. So what I want to go back to do now is take a look at the example where we already have some processes built out and get you familiar with this. So you can create stages by simply clicking, and then you can add a new stage. I showed you guys how to do that yesterday. So normally when you're creating a case life cycle, that's a pretty easy conversation. You want to do all the stages first. Make sure you got them in the order that you want to. If not, you can move them around from one to the other, and then you make a determination if you want to end it and if you want it to be a resolution stage or not. I want to delete it, I can come back and I can delete it also. All right, so let's talk about a process. A process and what rules are associated with that particular process. All right, so we come to this process and you see that I can click on this configure process and it opens up for me. And notice that there's always a start, there's always an end shape, but here is one step. This one step represents the other step, but this is called the shape. I can click here and it will still allow me to do some configuration. I can still do some level of configuration here. This is a human step. We call it an assignment. We call it a collect information type of step that we have here. Okay. And if I wanted to look at some of the other steps, then you see that we have a decision. Sub process, start, end, all of the automations. So let's quickly go through these and then we'll come back and we'll talk about them in detail. But someone was talking about sending an email. You have a use case to send an email. Here's actually a shape that will allow you to do that. So this is considered an automation, and here's an email that you then can send out. Internal notifications, if you want to send internal notifications, then you can also do that. What if I want to send an approval? Gives me the capability to send an approval out. Await. There was a conversation on one of the teams. They needed to wait for the foreign university to send something back. So what we do in our flow, we probably want to use the wait shape to make that happen. if you want to generate some type of document or create a PDF? What if you want to call another case? Remember I talked about the parent and the child relationship? I want to call another case, I then can do it here. So I just wanted to introduce you to these so you'll have some idea of what you can do in Pega. So let's come back and let's go look at the reservation a bit more. And let's look at how you can configure some of this. So this is called a collect information shape. And typically it has something to do with routing. Who do you want to actually look at this UI and work on this UI? You want the current user, or you want a different user? You have to specify that user, or you want it to go to a work queue. Consider a work queue like a basket, like a group queue, where that a lot of people can go to it and can pull from it. And it could also be based upon this UI shows up, you know, whether it's facility or whether it's IT, it shows up in that work basket, in that work list, based upon some type of business logic. Okay. Now, you also want to use a collect information step or assignment because you want to configure a UI. So if you go and click on configure UI on either one of those, you'll see that you have the capability to add fields. That's all you need to do to configure a UI. You simply need to add fields, and we'll talk about that in the data model later on, but you can add fields. You can create the fields here and submit it. And it's going to create a property value. It's going to add it to your UI, and it's part of your data model. Or if there's a field that you know already exists, I can come here. I think I put a TX field out there. Maybe not. I thought I put, see if I can find something that I know. All right, well, I can come here and look at the one of these fields, and I can then drag that out there and I can add it. If it's another field that I know, I can also search for it, but I couldn't find one. So that's how you're constructing a very simple UI. I can come and add fields here and they're part of my data model, but that's not the best practice approach. We'll talk about later on how to get into a data model and add that data model, and then can pull that data model fields in and make that part of my UI. All right, so you should feel fairly comfortable with creating assignments when you're looking at your case lifecycle. Now let's take a look at, this is an approval step. So on your case lifecycle, hopefully you have an approval step. If you don't have an approval step, then let me show you how to create one. You can click here and you'll see here's an approval reject. So you definitely have to have at least one approval step, approve, reject, in your environment that you're working in. So you simply go in and you can create it, give it whatever name you want to. And again, you have the opportunity to route it to a queue, business logic, and you have the capabilities to configure it, which says if you want them to approve it, maybe you need to put a yes, no there, or a checkbox, or some type of radio button to make that happen. So you then can go through and you can create your approvals and you can make that happen. Now, let's take a look at one more thing. Let's take a look at the email. Here's an example of an email. These are very simple to do. If I want to create an email, all I have to do is specify my send to field. This is a required field. I specify my subject. I then come through and I can compose my email. Now, you probably don't have anything there, but I can then come here, click on compose, and I can compose what I need to put into my email. So what if you want to use one of the properties, some of the values that you have on your case, in your case model, and you need it as part of the letter? Well, the way you do that is you start typing the letter, and then when you want to insert a property, you come to this icon to the far right, and you click on it, and it'll give you a list of all of the properties that you can insert into that field, and you then can search it, you click on it, and it will insert that value for you. Does anyone have any questions about how to compose an email? Okay, so that's fairly straightforward. I'm trying to show you some of the basic components and steps that you will definitely use when you're constructing your case life cycle tomorrow, and how to go in and do it. So you go in and you type this and you can go and compose it. Okay. Notice that you can add the personas. So the team that had set up those different personas, then you would say, I want a student and I want someone else from the university. That'd be a second persona. Whatever your third persona, you'd have these three personas. And if there are for all of the stages, you'd put them in all of the stages. And we'll talk about the data interfaces later on. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about how to create a case type, how to go into the case lifecycle, and create stages, create processes, and create steps? That's fairly simple, right? Okay. All right. So let's continue on here. So now let's talk about the Pega Studios and the portals. We have 4 different studios that we have in Pega that will allow us, based upon our role, to carry out the function that we need to carry out. And yesterday I went through and I showed you all of the aspects of them, so we don't really have to spend that much time today, but there's some features and functions that's up at the top of the header, in the navigation pane, on the sides. They all look the same. You have explorers that you can utilize. And then the workspace is where you do your work and where you see your portals. Okay. So these studios are considered portals. And then I'm going to show you how you can go through and you can build your own portal. All right. So let's take a look at, let's come back to here. So how do I find where my portals are? How do I find where my portals are? So let's change to change the Dev Studio. Okay. So in Dev Studio, you've logged on, and at the bottom, you'll see that you've logged into, and you can go into the access group. Now, I don't want to go into the operator this time. I want to go into the access group. Okay. Now, notice in the access group, this is showing the number of portals that you have here. These are the portals. You have a user portal, you have a developer portal. And if I wanted to add another portal, so what I want you guys to do is go in and click on Add Portal. And anytime you see the shaded bottom right corner, you can locate your cursor inside that field, hit your down arrow, and there should be available data that you can choose from. Okay. So notice that I can add the Prediction Studio. I can add the Admin Studio. That's how easy it is. Now, of course, you have the capability to do that. If you're a BA, you probably won't have the ability to modify your access group, but here you're going in and you can do that. You'll also need to know how to modify the access group. When we create your teams, teams will have operators. I'll show you how you're gonna have to copy and duplicate your operators, and you have to set the right access group and the profiles for them to initially set up. So this is where you would come to do that. This is one of the places, if you want to specify, I want them to be a developer, you want the developer portal to come up first, then this is where you want to do that. Okay. So you can go and add these, because right now, I only got the App Studio and the Dev Studio. But I'd have to log off and log back on before it would see those. So if you created those, you can save it if you want to, and at any given point log off and log back in, and you would then see these two. They would come up right here when it comes to launching. All right. Does anyone have any questions about where I go to look at portals when I'm working with an operator? Okay, so let's also look at it from the App Studio. Right? Let's look at it from the App Studio. If I'm using the App Studio, then I want to go to my channels. So if you're working in an environment, walk through this step with me, because I really want you to see how you can use these portals. I want you to create a portal. So now we're looking at creating a user portal. What we were looking at before, it was a portal for a developer. We want to create a user portal, attach it to a channel, and make that user be able to see that as the first thing. All right, so make sure you walk through this with me. So let's say that we're just going to create a portal here. So let's go ahead and click on portal. Give it a name, Texas fans, whatever you want to. Put any description you want to. And then you want to hit submit. And you'll see that it's going to create it, and it's going to add it to the list here at the bottom. Now, it's laid out to where you see, here's your main navigation, and here is your preview. So the portal that would come up, this would be the preview for you. Okay. So let's say, for instance, we just want this to be very, very limited. And to do that, we want to get rid of the explore data. We don't want any reporting. We don't want any spaces. So we only want home and dashboard. We want to add a separator. And let's look through here and see if there's anything else I can add. Let's go to custom pages. And let's say in custom pages, I want to add pulse, because I want them to be able to communicate with me, and I want to put some type of tags in there. So this is the type of creation that you would do when you're building your user portal tomorrow. Then I can make a decision for my create menu. Do I want to give the user the ability to create all of these or just one of these? So let's say I don't want anything except for water reservation. So now if you look over here, you see this is what it's going to look like. What did I just do? I got into App Studio. I'm creating a user portal so that when they log in of their operator ID, I need them to see it first. Now, there are some connections that I'll need to make, but this is what I have to do initially. I'm creating my portal. I added some custom pages. Now I come through and I save it. Okay. So I just saved my portal. Now I can go quickly to preview. I come and click here. And I come here and I select my portal. Okay. Now, notice your portal over here. You only have create. You should only be able to create water reservation or whatever you called it. I have dashboard, I have pulse, and I have tags. We used to have to go and create all the portals separately and all of the rules separately. But now in App Explorer, makes it very easy. I can get right into it and I can go and I can create my portal here. Now, what if I want to do some design? All I did was set up what my features are. What if I don't like this? What if I want to change something that's inside here? Very easy to do in App Explorer. You come and click on design. When you're in this mode, you click on design, you can change this section out. You can add other sections. You can move sections around. You can delete sections. You can change it from 2 column to 3 column. You can format it. You can do anything you want to in this mode to say that when I come to this screen, I want it to look a certain way. I can put branding on it in a certain color. So as you come build your portal, your first iteration is you want to look at how many features you want and what type of cases they can create. And it's very easy. I come back and I click on design. I'm back in the preview mode. And if I want to see what it looks like on a mobile device, I can do that. Now it uses something called a dynamic layout so that it lays it out in a certain order when the physical size of the device is smaller than what you designed it on. And we'll talk about how Pega does that also. But for right now, just choose the defaults and everything will work well for you. All right. So let's say that you created the portal, but now you want it where only certain users can see that portal. Where do I go in Pega? The easiest place to go is to go to user. And from user, go to user management. You see all your personas there. You go to portals and pages. Now, this is a really, really neat feature because what this is telling the system is, here are my portals that I've created for my users. Here are my personas. And so which one of the portals do I want to be default or a manager for the Texas fan, this is the portal that I want. So that's it. So when you would log off, log on, log back in, if a manager comes in, then that manager will see this Texas fan portal and it pops up every time. So you just saw an example to where you created a portal, you had personas, and now you've merged the portal with the persona so that anyone with that particular persona will see that portal coming up as the entry point of the application. All right, so was everyone able to create a portal? Give me a thumbs up if you're able to create a portal. All right, wonderful. And you're able to go in and see how to associate the portal with a persona. Two major steps that you'll do tomorrow. But it'll all be based upon your design of how you go through and do that. Okay. Let's take another look at, I don't think I shared this with you. When I go and take a look at a portal, I'm back over in Dev Studio and a portal. Oh, actually, the other place that I wanted to show you is that if I wanted to look at all of the pre-existing portals that are out there, I go to the Records Explorer. I come down to user interface, and from the user interface, I can click on portal, and it should show me the portals that are out there. So if you created a portal, now you can go and find your portal right here. Here's the portal that I created. Now, since I created it through my App Explorer, they're going to insist that I go through the App Explorer to go and look at it. If not, they're going to convert it for me, and then I can't go back to App Explorer and change it. So be careful if you come in through Dev Explorer and you edit it. If you created an App Explorer, edit it in App Explorer. If you created in Dev Explorer, then not Dev Explorer, but Dev Studio, then you want to edit it in the same place. Here's one that I know was created in Dev Studio. Let's see. There should be PX Express. Yeah. So PX Express was created in Dev Studio so you can see more of the information, the role, the composite type, in the skin. Okay. All right. So does anyone have any questions about how to create a portal? You got it. Okay, so let's go back to the lecture. We've covered this. We've looked at case worker portal, case manager types of portals that we created in the studios that we can utilize. Now, in one of the studios, we want to look at what's called release management. Release management is to make sure that you can release quality software for your implementation. We call it continuous integration, continuous delivery. It's a way to where I can look at that manager and I can look at everything that's happening in that instance to make sure that it has optimal performance. The things that's going through the pipeline that I have optimal performance. So let's come back and take a look at it so that you can see it. I was at the access group. So if you added that portal, let's add this portal to the access group. So come back here and add the admin studio portal to your access group. and save it this time. Because right now you'll see that these are not showing up for studio. All right, so save it. And then let's go ahead and exit out of your system, log off, and then log back on. Should be fairly quick for you. Okay. So now you should see the admin studio. You got it? Give you a few seconds, and then once you get to the admin studio, give me a thumbs up. Wonderful. Okay. So now that I can go to the admin studio, I should have added the prediction studio also, but the admin studio is, of course, for administrators. The developer studio is for developers. PX Express is the name of the studio for business architects. So now you see that there are lots of resources that I can look at. This will show me all of the requesters in my instance. So I won't go through all the details, but just to give you an idea, this admin is an administrator looking at the performance of the system and can look to see how many requesters are actually in this system. I'm quite sure systems that you work in, they have hundreds of requesters. This one doesn't have near as many, but can go and click on a requester and can look at and see what type of activity is actually happening. So that's one thing that you can do. We had a conversation, or I had a conversation with someone about one of the user stories of how they would set up or how they would solve the problem of waiting for the foreign university to send them information back. And I said, well, in Pega, you can set up a listener, set up an email listener. Certain emails come back through certain channels or will come back from certain types of people. Then that listener can pick it up and you have a way to resolve it. And we have a way to look at all of these listeners. Or we have something called an agent. So agents are most of you familiar with system services or daemons, DEAMONS, where they actually it's a background process running, something happening. All right, so we could set up and we can monitor daemons to see what's actually going on in the system to make sure that it's operating efficiently. Okay. And we can look at log categories, system settings, APIs. So Admin Studio is, of course, for administrators. So I wanted you to see it, to see the types of things that as an administrator for Pega that they have access to do out of the box features and functionality. Totally different from a developer, totally different from App Studio. Okay, so let's go back to a Dev Studio or go back to the App Studio, and we will then move on. Question was asked by Nader. We were showing the emails and the notifications and wanted to know what types can be sent. And so, yeah, I think that's what you're asking me. So by default, when you get into the system and you're sending an email, it's just sending text, a text email. but know that it's creating a correspondence record. Correspondence. Let's see if I can find the correspondence record here. I don't use that one very correspondence type. So there are correspondence types, and in a correspondence type, let me open it up. You know what? Let me just go ahead and create one so that you can see. Now let's go to correspondence. See, all of these are email, but if I want to create a correspondence, that configured email automation uses by default a correspondence rule, and it uses the text type of correspondence. But this is one of the rules to where you can specify some additional information. I'll show you the correspondence type, my message. Thank you very much for the coffee. Good old Turkish coffee. So correspondence record. Notice here, I can send email. Now that's really, really small, but I can send email, fax, mail, or phone text. If I build a correspondence, those are the 4 options that I have. Well, you asked the question though, what if I need a PDF or docs files? We do have an automation for that. If you go and look at our case types, let's get into rental vehicle here, that there is a step in my automation for me to create a PDF. So if I want to, in my process, if I want to go through and I want to create a PDF, now notice what it's having you to do. Give me the PDF name, and it's a correspondence. So I can specify the type of category that I want to create. Okay. The other option I believe that you have is you can generate different type of documents. Now that takes a little bit more work, but you actually have the ability to generate certain types of documents. So if you really want to customize it, you can do that. To make sure that it's clear, by default, the email is going to create text. If you want to create a PDF, you have an automation to create the PDF from the same information. It's going to use the correspondence rule to do that. Or if you want to generate different types of documents, then you have the capability to do that also. Now you may have the question, what if I want to create a letter, but I also want to attach a file that I already have? How do I actually do that? Well, I would do the email, and then you'll see that there should be an automation here that will allow me to attach content. Now I can attach a file, URL, or a note, and I have that automation to do that. So that should solve 90 to 95% of your correspondence concerns that you may have. If you're sending something out, we can send an email, SMS message, you can send a fax, you can send a letter, you can come and create a PDF, you can generate all of the different type of documents that you want. Now you'd have to probably import a third party API for the generate document, because that's a little bit more convoluted. And I can attach any one of the files, any file type. Nadir, you have a question or a comment? Nadir?
Wondering if you could get a file from the user as well. If you could get a uploaded file from the user rather than just generating and sending one. Is it
Yes.
possible to receive one as well?
Yeah, so this is what the attached content is. So if you wanted to receive something from the user, you would set this up so that they would have the ability to bring up the file dialog and they can load it from their local system. And then it gets attached to your case type. And then we store that off so that then you could get access to it on the server. Okay? Did that answer your question?
Yes, that answered my question. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Yeah. So that's probably one of the steps that you will add based upon the use case that you want attachments to happen. So you'll do the attached content. You can do that. And really the great part about Pega is that you can model all of this just to make sure that you got your flow correct. And you don't have to implement all of the details behind it yet. You could add this attachment and you could run Pega. And when Pega got to that, it would say, well, it's not fully implemented, give you a message, but says this is where the attached content would go. You say, okay, and then you move on. Then you could come back second iteration and say, now let's find someone to work on and assign that to someone on your team. You work on the attachment while I work on the general correspondence letter. That's the way that one would work. Okay. Great question. You guys have any other questions? You should be comfortable with the portal. You should be comfortable with case lifecycle. You should be comfortable with case type. And so now we want to move into your data model. It's important that we end up modeling your data. Pega has a very rich set of tools to allow you to do that. And they've really made this an easy transition when you're looking at your data model. But also you do have to remember, if you're working as a BA and you're trying to build a prototype, it's probably not the real data that you're getting from your production database, or it may not even be the data that's tied to your training or your development database. As a BA, you can construct and you can create a prototype without having to use the system of records. By simply going to a data model and you can start specifying that, you know what, let me go to one that I created that doesn't have anything. Let's go to the hotel reservation. So here's my hotel reservation. And in the hotel reservation, there are some system properties that are here, but there's nothing that pertains to my actual data model. Now, let me just pause for a second and tell you how to identify a system property. A system property starts with PY, PX, or PZ. So you cannot name a property with PX, PY, or PZ. PY is a updatable property, system property. So if you see something like PY first name, PY last name, PY address, means that you can use that out of the box property and you can update it, which means that the values can be updated. If you have a PX and a PZ, you cannot update those. Those are read-only system properties. We use those for instance, PX operator ID. That's the operator. So we don't let you change the operator ID. We keep that information associated with who logs on and whatever they go and change. Okay. But back to my data model, I can simply come in if I want to do some prototyping. Let's look at it from a very simplistic point of view, or let's look at it from your point of view that you guys are going to build something over the next 6 days and you really don't have a system of record that's out there. So I can come to a data model and it is as simple as me coming here and say add field. So let's say that I'm wanting to add a field. I want to add Texas name. right? A type, you want to specify what type of values that you want it to hold. We have a single line of text. We have a paragraph, Boolean expression, currency, date, time, date only, decimal, integer, integer, percentage, phone, pick list, time only, URL, attachment, location. And then you have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In essence, those are for data objects. Different types of data objects, but just say that you want this one field name to represent a collection of fields, a object of information. So if you're familiar with, again, I'm an old C++ programmer. If you remember the concept of what a reference is, a reference object, right, that points to another object. So you got this reference data type that's pointing to an object, and that object can have one to many other properties in it. That's what these are for. And in most cases, you'll use embedded data. I have a long day's lecture about day 4, day 5. We'll break down these different types and why you use one versus the other. But in most cases, you'll use embedded data, and I'll tell you it's because you are embedding your data into your case data. So that's really what that's for. But let's just create a very simple one. Let's create text. And I can say submit another one. And I can create history timeline. And I can come back and I say, I want integer. And then I can say already validated. Create already validated, and I can make this Boolean. Makes it very easy because a Boolean is true or false. I do that, and I hit, no, I then hit submit, and voila, it goes and creates them for me. Now, once they're added to the data model, it gives me the capability to go back to my case types or to my workflow, and I can create a form, and I can then start using them. I have to create a step. Oh, can't have that. Create a step. Collect information. Make it very simple. info, and I can come over here and what was the name of my fields? Did I call it Texas name? There it is. So Texas name. And that's how easy it is. So when you guys start building your UIs, you really want to wait until you build your data model. Build your data model first, and then you can start going into your steps. You want to model your steps, but you don't want to start configuring your steps until you get to the point you want to build your data model. So I just went in and I added that, and I save it, and when I run it, then it ends up running, and you see that's going to show up as a text field, input field for me. And it just goes from there. Okay. But I don't want to get focused yet on the UI. I really want to focus more on the data model. So let me go back to the data model. But now, what I did though, I just built 3 different fields that they're not associated with each other. That's not quite what I want to do. What I really want to do is I want to create this data object type of association to make that happen. So if I do that, I want to add a field and call it Texas info. I want to come down here and say it's embedded data. All right. And I would have to create a new data object to do that. I won't do it this way because this is not the best way to do it. I'll show you a better way to do it. But I can come here and say, I want a data object. I create the field, I create that reference to that data object, and then I can go and define a new data object. I don't like to create a field and then go and shell out and do a data object and then come back because it's too many steps. I like to keep them separate. I'm going to show you how I can go and build a data object first. Then I can come back and create a field so that then all I have to do is select the field, select the data object for my given field. That makes it easier. That makes it cleaner. Okay. But before I do that, let me get back to the data model. So let's go back to here because I want that to be my central thing. Let me go back to this case type that's already built out, and let's go to its data model. So if you want to see a holistic view of your data model, you want to click on View Data Model over on the right-hand corner. Yeah. And so that's a very interesting look. It shows you all of, it's like a data dictionary. It shows you all of your data, all of your fields, properties, and it shows you the relationships. Here, reservation to vehicle, customer rental, and vehicle rental. Okay. So now that's one view that you look at. If you don't like that view, I think I got a better view for you. This is a very, very comprehensive view. This allows me to see in one big panel my data models. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 data objects. We hadn't talked about it yet, but we will. I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 data pages. These 2 data pages, customer and customer lists, are referencing this data object. All right. So these are my data pages for this data object. And then they are referenced by, and these are my case types. Wow. Gives me a real good picture of what's going on from a data perspective. These are my case types that are referencing it, and tells me the system of record. Is it Pega or is it some external source that I actually have? That is my data model. Okay, so now I told you I would show you a different way where I can create my data objects and then simply go and associate those with my data fields, right? So here I come to new. And remember, I came from the Data Explorer. Now, what is my new data object that I want to create? I want to create Texas info. I want to put it at the implementation layer. Let's go back to our situational layer cake, right? We have Pega at the bottom, right? We have our org. Well, no, we had Pega, and then we had our UI or constellation, and then we have our org, and then we have our division, and then we have our implementation. So we're putting it in the implementation layer. I say next. Do I want to put it into the Pega database? Yes. If I had a spreadsheet, I could update and send some data and add some records at the same time. It's like using a database utility to load. Okay. Okay. Now I've created my data object. I went to my data explorer, looked at my data model. Upper right hand corner, I created my data object. I created it in the implementation layer. Now I can add my fields for that data object. Okay, very easy. I come here and I add fields, and I'd say, I don't know, hat size. You know that everybody in Texas, we wear a hat because we're cowboys. And I'll say decimal. Submit. I'll say what goes with my hats and my boots. And I'll make that a integer. Okay. And then I'll say my team. You know, we have the Texas, we have the Dallas Cowboys here. So I'll just make that text, and that will be it. Okay. So I just added 3 fields to my data object. It automatically creates a key for me. This is the PYGUID. So that's a key that it creates for me. It's automatically generated. Give a label just to show some labels. But here I got my hat size, my boots, and I have my team. And I save it. All right. Now that I've created my object, now make sure you understand this step. Keep them as separate skill. Create your objects first, and then you want to go and create your field to reference that object. Let me tell you why. This data object that I just created, it's a data dash class. It's not a work dash class. So let's just make sure you guys can see that. Make sure you can see that so you can understand why I tell you create your data objects first so they can be that data dash, and then you're going to go and create your field that's going to reference that data dash, but that field is going to be a work property that's referencing a data dash class. Now, I've said that over and over again. It may not make sense yet, but it will when you start building it using using your data pages, and you have to access something. But let me show you the picture so that you can see the object that you are building and the object that you're creating. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to data types. And you'll see, here's this Texas info. All right. And I want you to look up at the class name. The class name is tour dash car rentals dash. It's not work dash, but it's data dash. Data dash Texas info. So when you create a data object, it's going to associate it with a data dash class at whatever layer that you want to put it in. If I create it from the app studio, it can only go to the implementation layer. Or if I'm creating a framework, it can only go to the framework layer. But I'll show you, I can create them independently here, and I can place them anywhere I want to. Now, here's a different view. If I come and change this from work to data, now you can see all of my data dash classes that are in my implementation layer. Okay, so it's important to know where these objects are going so the power of reuse can be implemented when needed and when necessary. All right, so now let's get back to what I was saying originally. Now that I've created this and I want to go back to my case type, and go to its data model. And now I want to create a field that's going to reference that data dash object. And what I will say that if you're creating data objects, for right now, you want to, by default, use all embedded data. There's kind of, that's the standard. The other ones you have to have a reason why. All right, so here now I can see Texas info. Much easier to do. Texas info is added. Now what it's asking is, when I reference that data object, do you want me to reference it as a single object? Think of it this way. Am I doing a call to the database and bringing back one row of columns of information? Or do I want to bring back a list of records? Now I'm going to use this reference as a reference to a collection of objects coming back. Does it make sense? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to say yes. Hamed, you have a question?
Sir, I was on the track. I just want to say that I understand.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. All right, so now I'll come and I'll just say single. This is repeating, but you could do either one, doesn't matter. Okay. Actually, I think for the, I don't want to say single because what I want to do is show you guys a data page later on. So let me do that one more time. I can use this as an example to show you how to use a data page of information. Texas, I'm gonna say list just so I can get a list. Okay. All right. So where does this property reside? Where do these properties reside? This is a good conversation between work, properties, data, objects. These reside in the work dash class. Let me show you. Come with me to Dev if you are following me doing your example. Let me change back to work. Let's see. I'm in hotel rental, I believe. Yes. So I go to hotel rental. I go to my data model. I go to my properties. And remember those three fields that I created? There they are. But which class are they under? The work class. So these properties are under the work class. Now, notice this. This is under the work class, but its definition is telling me it is a reference to what? The data class. Let that sink in. You want to create independent data dash objects so that any of your case types can use it. Then you can come into your data model and you can add a field to reference your data dash objects while you're in your work class. Because guess what? In your UI is going to be in your work class. So you're going to gather information off your UI into the work properties, and you're going to map them to the data dash properties so that when you then do save, you can save it into the database based upon the layout of the objects, which should represent the columns in your table. Okay. So let me go back to the lecture just to make sure that I covered everything. So in the data model, so we just got through talking about how to look at the data model, utilize the data model. I strongly recommend that you use that data model page that's on App Studio. We used to have to go to Dev Studio, and there were 3 or 4 different places you have to look to find it. In App Studio, it's consolidated. It's totally consolidated. You go to that data model page, you can see the objects, you can see the data pages, you can see the case types, and you can also see the store, the system of record that it's associated with. So that is the best way to do that. You guys saw fields and data objects. I showed you how to create the fields. I showed you how to create the data objects. And now what I want to do is have you take a look at data storage, how that data can be stored, how it can be manipulated through a data transform. And again, this difference between this work dash and this data dash, right? The work dash is going to have where all your rules are and all the data the data elements you're processing, but the data dash is going to represent that data that's going to be persistent in some data store or represent some data store. Okay. Data records here, what we call in Pega, a data record is a row of information out of a table. Data record is a row of information out of a table. And a data page is that rule that allows me to manipulate data from a data source, the endpoints. And so that's what I'm getting ready to show you now. This data storage, the data records, and the data pages. Okay. All right, so let's come back to App Studio. I always like to go to App Studio. Let's go back to my data. Again, here's the best view in the world, right here. And I can come down to my Texas info and I can click on it. Now, notice what it gives me. It gives me my model, records. In Pega, I can actually add records without having to do an insert or a database utility load. Teams. Let's see. You guys know Texas Rangers won the World Series, right? So we're excited about that. Okay, so I just added 2 rows. That's equivalent for me doing an insert into a database table. Equivalent to me doing a utility load into a database table. I just added the 2 rows. Where did I add those? What table is it associated with it? Well, let's quickly just go and look. I'm going to go to configure, data model. So let this be your friend. Database class mapping. And I can click on data. Right. I know it's at the very last page because it started with the T. And you'll see that here's my data-Texas info class that's mapped to this table. It has 15 columns. Where is it? Yeah, 15 columns, and it has 2 rows of data in it. Wow. Okay. I can see my table that my class represents, and Pega establishes the relationship with it, and you don't write any code at all to make that happen. So any case type that uses data that points to the data Texas info, then Pega will know how to store that information into the work class. All right, so now let's go back to App Studio. Let's go back to App Studio. I've added these 2 rows of data. We don't have any views created. And these are my data pages. So we just got through looking at data records that I added. And so now you see that this is my data page that I'm creating, that I then can use. Okay. I think I can click here. No, let's see. Open. Oh, so this causes me to, now I got to go out to Dev Studio. So I thought I could open them right here. So instead of me just clicking to go there, let me show you how to go from here to Dev Studio. So you want to go to Dev Studio, you want to go to the Data Explorer. I'm going to close some of these windows. Now I am at the Data Explorer here, and I'm at the Texas info, my data object. Remember, this is my data object. You see the fields that I've created. And notice the 3 on all of these. By default, Pega will create what you would call in other languages a data access object, but a data page, so that you can bring back a list of records, or you can bring back one record based upon a key structure. Or you can save it, you can insert and you can save it. That's automatically built for you. So let's look at this list. Now for right now, I won't say too much about the construction of a data page other than it helps us get data, bring back a list or a row. All of these options, I need to talk about all of these options on one day, and I'll do that probably next Tuesday or Wednesday. But know for right now that this definition allows me to bring back a list of information from this data object. And I use a report definition, a query, to go and query that database so that it will bring back that information for me. And it automatically built the report definition. It automatically created the query for me. I can test that out by doing a run. So here it gives me the capabilities to, I always want to flush the previous instance, so nothing's in there from the previous run. And I then do a run. Now, what is it doing behind the scenes? Generating the query, calling the database, fetching the rows, and bringing it back to me. And I hadn't written any code yet. So let's scroll down. Here's the PX results. So all data is returned to PX results. All right, so I expand PX results. I have subscripts, right? PX results of 1 for the first row, PX results of 2 for the second row. I click here and expand it, and you see there's the information. My faithful Cowboys. Okay. I expand the second row, and you see there's my faithful Rangers. Very, very powerful, very easy to use though. I simply tested out my list to make sure that I could fetch the rows of data that's there. Now, in my report definition, I can also create what's called a filter that will generate a where clause so that I can limit what I want to bring back. Pega automatically does that for you too. All right. So let's say that I want to bring back only one of these records. So remember the GUID, that's the key. So I'm going to copy or try to copy. Come on, give me the whole thing. All right. Starts with an E. Hopefully I got that. And this is wacky. Okay, I have to put a 5 at the. Let's see if it'll let me get to. All right, so hold on. Let me run it one more time. See if I can get the key. I want to flush this. PX result 2. So hopefully I copied and pasted it. And that will give me the information that I need so that when I want to come back and run and pull back only one row, this is only one page of data instead of a list of objects. I do a lookup source. So I got to pass it a key so that it'll bring back that information for me. Let's do a run. Notice that it's asking for a key now. Hopefully it copied that. And I put a 5 at the end, I believe it. That's what I needed there. And I do a run. Up, said no records were found. So apparently I did not cut and paste it correctly. But if I could put the right key in it, notice that it's only finding one key and it'll bring back that one row. So you may have an instance in your UI that you need to bring back a particular row, then know that you already have a data page rule that's already built for you. Or you may want to bring back a list of objects, a list of rows, and know that it's already built for you. Now, I hadn't given you an opportunity to show you how to tie it all together to where you're taking information from a UI, passing it to the data page, and then the data page brings back the information. You got to map it back to the UI. We hadn't done that yet, but know that you got a data page that can access information. right now, and it's part of your data model. So what did we learn? We learned that I can create data objects for my data models. I can create fields for my data models. My data objects can be referenced by my fields in my work class in order to get access to information. Any questions or comments about that? This is a high level overview of the data model. I will delve deep into parallel processing, key processing, many other things. I want to give you enough information so that you can build your initial iteration and start working on your data model. We'll put it all together and make it functional later on. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So we covered all of these. So the clipboard is one of the main tools that we utilize to make sure that if something's not working right, we can pause and we can take a look at it and we can fix it. And so the way you do that is to understand that the executing object. So where does the object come from? It comes from a class. And where does the class come from? It comes from a case type. So the case type that you're running is represented by a class, and a class is instantiated into an object, and that object sits on PY work page. And we use a tool called the clipboard to go and look at PY work page and many other things that are in Pega so that we can see exactly what type of case data that I have. All right, so let's actually take a look at it. I want you to go to, see, I think I can do it in App Studio. Yeah, in App Studio, I think they did give me the capability to use the clipboard and case type. So you want to get into something that has some functionality now. So I'm going to get back into my rental reservation because I know I need to capture some data. And I'm going to save and run. Come on, that's not supposed to do that. Okay. Let's try it again. If not, I'll get into Dev Studio and see what's happening here. There we go. So save and run. Submit. Get past the first screen. I was just born a few days ago. Now, remember these are UIs that are coming up. Okay, shows the information. Now, bottom right-hand corner, there's the clipboard tool. So I want you to click on the clipboard tool. It should open up in a different window. Let's investigate the clipboard. First of all, let's go ahead and close this, and you'll see that there are 4 major pages in the clipboard tool. There's a data page section, link property section, system page section. But we're only interested in the user pages section. That's where our data is. When we really start using data pages, you'll see a copy is always on the data page, and you'll see a different in the same copy on the user page because of some things we can do with our data pages. But for right now, we're only interested in the user pages. So let's expand the user pages. What are we looking for? We're looking for PY work page. Remember, PY is a system property. PY work page. The Y means it is updatable. So it's in alphabetical order. and you come down and where is it? Okay, hold on. Let's see if we can find here. Okay, so maybe it doesn't show it in the app studio PY work page. Do you see it there? Am I missing it? Nope, 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 no PY. So apparently it doesn't show up in this clipboard. So I don't want to show it. I don't want to just do that. Let's see. No. Okay. So that's a limitation for the clipboard here. That didn't help us at all. So let's go ahead and close that. Let's change to the Dev Studio in order for me to demonstrate what you need to do for editing. So what that tells me, when you are trying to test out your program, you really can't use the App Studio clipboard. It didn't give you the right information. So let's go back to rental reservation. Okay. So I'm going to run it from the Dev Studio. Run and save. And the clipboard is at the bottom here. All right, so now let's try. Also notice that it's creating, this is the PYID. This is the ID of the instance object that's running. Okay, so now let's add some information. All right, I'll hit submit. Approved. I'll just go a little bit farther so you can see a bit more information. All right, come on. Okay, so it gets me into rental information. You know what? Actually, that's probably enough. So now let me go into the clipboard. All right, so now you see the PY work page. That's what we're looking for. So it gives you the same view. Just on the App Studio, it doesn't show PY work page, and that doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, here's the main place. So these are your 4 pages that you have. Expand the user pages. Scroll down, alphabetical order, and you'll find PY work page. And notice that PY work page, it is representing the data for the work dash rental reservation, which is the case type that we are running, the class that was instantiated, and this is the object that's holding the case data. I can expand it. Where'd it go? Oh, there we go. I can expand it, and let's see, if I go to customer, Oh, there is no information there. No, here it is. I come to rental customer. In rental customer, when I click on it, now you see my information. Okay. So that's the information that's stored. And so you have to make sure that when you're trying to test out your data, you have to go past the UI. It'll go and update memory. Then you want to go to the clipboard. You can't see it when you're on the UI. You have to hit the submit so it can post it to the server. Now it's on the server's memory, and then you can go and you can see what's actually there. So that's the purpose of the clipboard. It gives you the capability to take a look at what's in memory, and it's great for debugging. But you definitely want to do it in Dev Studio because the PY work page is what you need to look at to find your data. Yesterday, we walked through the new application wizard in App Studio. Today, we're going to walk through it a second time in Dev Studio because tomorrow you guys will create your team application, and we need to make sure that you're clear on what you have to do. So we're going to walk through it again. We'll talk about inviting operators to the application. We'll go through this process. We'll go in and we'll look at how you are supposed to configure your operators so that they can get access to it. And then we will go from there. Okay, let's end the day talking about how to create a new application. This is one of the few places in Pega training, or one of the only places that we really start from the beginning. We would do something like this in our administration class, but never in our development class. But I've always felt that it's important that even a BA or a developer, they understand the role of an LSA. This is what an LSA would actually do after having some conversations in the discovery and in the prepare phase. He or she would have enough information to determine how to initiate a new application, work with the administrators to say, these are the teams and the operator IDs that we need to generate or create, the authorities that we need to give to these people so that they can do their work based upon their role. So I think it's something everyone should know. Even though you may not ever do it, you need to know how to do it, what's being done, so that you get a clear understanding of the context in which you're working in. In Pega, you have the capability to build a new application. Remember, the application is this broad container. It's a container for case types, and it's a architecture that you are setting up to establish the layer cake to determine how your framework, your architecture is being built to generate the solution that you're looking at. And so when we get into this process, the system will need to know the name of the application, the organization that's doing this, if it is a division or not, and then if it's a unit. In most cases, in rare cases, you may have a unit. It doesn't create an additional layer. It just adds an additional name to the naming pattern. So that's the only one that really doesn't create a layer for you. It just adds an additional token to the naming pattern. We need to talk about what's the difference between a framework and an implementation layer. And the best way for me to tell you the difference is to ask you about how your solution is going to be used. An easy way to look at it is if I am building a solution and I want to sell my solution to the industry, then I probably want a framework. And I sell framework because I'm selling this solution. It's not totally complete. It's built so that you can go in and customize it so that it has a look and feel for your organization, but you may have some additional steps that you want to add to it. Let me give you a good example. In Pega, they have industry frameworks for banking. Their popular framework is for loan processing. Well, we know that when there's loan processing, there's a few major commonalities that happens all the time. First thing they do is they ask you for your personal information. Second thing they do is they ask you for your financial information. The third thing that happens is that they go through an approval process. 1, 2, 3. Every bank does that. Pega realized that. They created a completed solution that's a framework that says, hey, out of the box, you can take it as it is. Doesn't look very pretty because it doesn't match your colors. It may be missing some steps that you do other than those 3 major ones, but we know that you do at least those 3 major ones, and you can go in and you can build a implementation layer on top of the framework layer so that it can address the unique customized portions that you want to do. So that's my example of why I would use a framework if I'm going to maybe resell it in the market, or if I'm within my organization and I want to make sure that every department that's implementing a Pega project, every department uses a certain structure, and this structure can be found in my framework. So I'm going to create this framework, and I'm going to, through governance, require that everyone, when they build a Pega application, that the layer of the framework layer will be built there, and then you can build either your own framework on top of it, or you can build an implementation layer, situational layer cake, and you can do that. So there's some thought that has to happen, because once you decide that it's not a framework, it's implementation, or it's not implementation, it's framework, then it's hard to refactor all of those classes because it generates all of these classes for you based upon some naming convention. Again, this is a responsibility of an LSA, but it's great information for you to know. And as you go through, it will ask you to invite users. So we'll go through this exercise where you'll invite 2 or 3 people so you can see that, so that whoever you choose to do it on your team, then that person will know exactly what to do and what's actually needed going forward. This talks a little bit about the implementation layer and the framework layer when it comes to rules resolution. But again, that's a different story. Just know that there are 2 paths that Pega will always look at when it's looking at trying to find a rule. If you have both the implementation and the framework layer, it will search both, find the rules, and determine which one it should execute. And then the strategy. The security model, we'll talk about this concept of the operator ID, which is for authorization or for authentication with the access group. And then it tells you the application rule, all of the rules you can execute, all the functionality that you can carry out. We hadn't talked about it, but a rule is no more than a logical instruction in Pega. A class is a grouping of those rules, which are logical instructions, and a rule set is a container of classes and rule instances for deployment. So those are testable definitions. If they ask you on an exam, those are the words that you need to look for. A rule set, the key word is it's a container of classes. Okay, we never say that a class is a container of rules. We never say that. We say that a rule set is a container of classes and rule instances, and a class is a grouping of rule instances. Okay. And we have authorization and authentication. We have an object-oriented security system. We call it the RBAC, ABAC, CBAC. We'll talk about that later on. That's some detail that you'll need to know. but it's not necessary for you to get your system up and running. Here I show this picture where there are, you know what, I said there was 209 rules. I went back and counted, and I guess there was an old count, but now in Infinity, there's only 185 rules, 185 rules in 15 categories. I used to say there was 209 rules and 16 categories. So they've gone in and cleaned up some things. But you have to have a rule that's in existence. And one of the rules that's in an existence is a class. And the purpose of a class rule is to store other rule instances. And a class has to be stored or placed or applied to in a certain layer. It has to be in a certain layer. And that layer represents information that is stored in a rule set. So that's really how you look at this. The rule set has layers. The layers contain classes. The classes contain rule instances, and the rule instances are derived from the rule types. That's the general scheme that we have in Pega. In the security model, we have an operator ID that talks to an access group, that talks to an application rule. That application rule reads the rule set. The application rule gives you access to the rule sets, which of course has the layers and have the classes where the instances came from the rules. That's how that works. And then when I get ready to deploy it from one system to the other, from training to staging, from staging to production, I have an administrative operator ID that has an access group that gets access to the application rule. That application rule then packages the rule sets so that I can move that package into another machine and be able to deploy it there. If I'm a user, I'm going to come through that operator ID, that access group, my application rule. Again, it takes me to the rule set that has the layers. The layers will have classes. Those classes will have data dash classes, rule dash classes, int dash classes, and work dash classes. And those are running on the clipboard when you're executing a case type. When you execute that case type with its embedded properties, it gets stored into a database table, into a column that is a blob. We call that PV stream, and it gets stored right into that column so that you can then access it quickly and fast. And regardless to the size, it has the ability to grow and to shrink. So that's what Pega does. That's how you access this platform as a developer, as a user, as an administrator. All right. So we've already talked about case, stage, process, and step, personas, operators, access groups, and of course the stakeholders that we look at as a business architect. There are many stakeholders that you have to address and that you have to work with. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the system now. I want everyone to do this. I want everyone to do this. Whatever exercise environment you're in, you have the capability to do it. Go to the Dev Studio. Let's work out a Dev Studio so we know that we have all the functionality that we need. And we want to go to application. In an application, we want to go to new application. I want everyone to create their own application, totally different from mine, something you're familiar with. Let's come here and we're going to do build from scratch. Now, notice that in this version that I have, it may be different from your version, but the version that I have, this one already has some, these are frameworks, financial services frameworks. So I could choose one of these frameworks, and then I could build my own custom framework on top of that. That would be 3 layers in the layer cake. All right. Or I can build from scratch, which in essence says Pega is my base, and then I'm building my application. But we know with Pega comes also another layer on top of it, which is always the UI component. But let's go ahead and build from scratch. But this time, instead of constellation, let's talk about the traditional. Let's use the traditional UI, because if we're going to do our project, we're going to do it with the traditional UI, because it takes a bit more and some knowledge about React, but let's stay with the traditional UI because we only have 7 to 8 days to get through what we need to do. Select it. All right, so now here's your application name. Again, give it some broad name, not a case type, but some broad name that's you're managing a lot of functionality. Okay, so for me, I think I want to go with youth sports management. And I do that because I used to own a video production company where we'd go out and capture youth football games, basketball games, track, sports, anything. And we had several products that we would have to generate. So that's broad enough to know that I have to have a case type for events. I have to have a case type that will identify my customers, my users, and many other things. So this would be a broad category for me. All right, so give you a couple of minutes, think about it. Something that you've always, maybe it's a business you've always wanted to create, something that you're familiar with. Now, once you do that, let's go into the advanced configuration. And you and your team will have to make these decisions tomorrow. What are you going to name your application? Right? Now, is it an implementation or is it a framework? Are you building this so that it's complete, but it's generic, that you would either want to resell it in the industry so that they could then customize it by putting a implementation on top of it, or you want to keep it within the confines of your organization across the globe, but you want this generic framework to fit for every department so that we know that we have the base functionality framework in place. If so, you want to make it a framework. If not, then implementation means that I'm creating a solution that we're building, and I'm not looking for anyone else to build on top of it. For me, I'm going to choose an implementation just so I can show you more functionality. If you choose framework, it's absolutely fine. You'll be able to see what some of the differences are. Okay. You see that it has shortened the name of my ID, Youth Sports. Change this name. It probably defaulted to whatever organization that it was associated with when you logged in. So make sure you change the org. So I'm going to change this to Y Sports. Now, most organizations will use the symbol name on like the New York Stock Exchange or whatever exchange in the country. They would use it. So for instance, if it was IBM, they would use IBM, whatever that short symbol is. That's typically what they would use for the organization name. For my division, I'm going to say football. Right? And I do want to generate a divisional layer because this original layer is for football. I probably want to come back later on and create me another divisional layer for baseball or basketball if I continue to grow. Or I may want to say, here's a divisional layer for football in the US and then for soccer for the rest of the world. So that's why I decided to choose a divisional layer. Now, you don't have to. If you don't generate a divisional layer, though you have information in it, it will not generate a divisional layer for you. At the bottom, you see, this is the naming convention that it's going to create. YSPO for my organization. My division is foot. That's kind of weird. I'll just go F ball. Okay. The application name itself will be use SPO, and then this is for my work class. Okay. Did anyone choose framework? Give me a thumbs up if you did framework. No one did framework? Okay, so we'll just go with application. And what I was about to tell you, if you did framework, you won't have the ability to generate a divisional layer. You don't get a divisional layer opportunity with a framework. You only get the organization layer. So we'll do this, and let's click save. And that takes you back to this screen. Now you want to create your application. So look, you're in this application, but you're going to create a new application, and it will give you an option to go directly to your new application is what you want to do. So create the application. Again, this is what someone in your group will have to do tomorrow. Get everybody set up. And it will bring you to this screen. Now, whoever does this tomorrow, you need to add the name, email of the people that's on your team. So I'm going to go with now, they don't necessarily have to be real emails, but so just do about 2 or 3, but they do have to follow the email format. So I added 3. Tomorrow, you guys will add 4 or 5, whichever one you want to do. Ufuk has already added an administrator, so someone will have to play the role of the administrator and we'll add the other 4 people. So let me just add one more person here so you can see exactly what you'll be doing. Okay. And yeah. Now, it doesn't really help to send the invitation because your systems are not connected to an external email server. They're not going to go anywhere. But what you probably need to do is you need to capture this page, do a screen capture. So here's my capture utility. Just in case you lose the passwords. There's a way you can go and reset it, but just in case you lose the passwords, I always keep that to the side. All right. So at this point, you created your application, you've invited people to the application, and now you want to go to the application. So let's go ahead and go. It should change up at the top. You should see your application. You should not have any case type, so go and check that out. No case type should exist. Change to Dev Studio. Go to the App Explorer. Let's see how many classes are out there. Here's your parent work class. Locate your cursor there. Go all the way back to the first org name. You should see all of your classes that it created for you. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you're good so far. All right. Great, 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 great. Okay. So what did you do? You created a new application. You've invited some users, but now these users have to get access to it before they can do any work whatsoever. And you saw all of the classes that it created for you. So in other words, you are good to go. Okay. So let's take a look at the operators. In order for me to find the operators, I need to go here, organization. So I go to the records explorer, go to organization, and I go to operator ID. I made it really, really easy to find mine. I just went in and I looked here and I made it J, 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 J. So that's really easy for me to find mine. So find your operators that you created. Now, Ufuk may do it a little differently. He may tell the administrator to log in and make copies of the operator ID and then change the name. But 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. I'm going to show you this way. He'll probably show you the other way. Go and open one of your operators. So I'll just click here. And notice that your operator has an access group. You can either be an author or you can be a user. There's a way that you can make a copy of an access group so that that user can be like an administrator to have functionality. But for right now, we'll just go with that, and it gives you access to the application rule. All right. If you look at work, this is your organizational structure. Security says that you are allowed to check a rule in and out. Also, I can force a password change. I can update the password. That's why I told you to keep the passwords. But if I did an update password, I could say something like Pega 1, 2, 3 exclamation point. Exclamation point. I can submit and I can say, don't force a change and update the password. Well, that's what I already did. Hold on. There we go. So I'm not going to force a password change on next login. That way I can give everybody the same login and we'll know that it's okay. Or you can tell them to force the change. That's up to you. Just know that when they log into the system, they will be required to change the password. But now you do that and you save it. All right. So that's one action. If, for instance, this was the administrative ID and I wanted to make a copy of the operator, all I would have to do is go to action, I'm sorry, go to save and do a save as. Now my operator instead of J, it's Joe. Create and open. Okay, now I just made a copy of the old operator ID, created a new one called Joe, and I can come to the security and I can either update it or not update the password, or I can force a change. So two different ways to do that. So if you're chosen as the one responsible for creating the operator IDs, then you either can sign everyone, or you can just go into the administrative ID, come here, make copies for your team, and then you can let them know what the operator ID is for them to get in. All right. Does anyone have any questions about that? Sounds good. So there's one more step that you have to take. Now that that's done, you're working as a team. You need to make sure that the integrity of your rules that you update are not stepped on by someone else. So you're going to have to make it to where people have to check in and check out a rule in order for them to use it. So go up to configure, application, and go to structure and go to the rule set stack. Remember that situational layer cake that you've created. Here's another view of the rule set stack. I hadn't shown you this view, but here's a different way to get to the rule set stack. I like this one. This is a better view for me from a technical perspective. I can look at Pega rules as my base layer. Then I can see my theme Cosmos as my next layer. Then I can see these rule sets are for this particular layer of my application, the actual application that I'm working on. Much, much better view for me. Now, if I wanted to see the details, all I gotta do is click on the plus and you see all the rule sets that's associated with it. All right, but those are the built on. Okay, so I know that this top level rule set is the rule set that's open. Notice that all of these rule sets are open. That's really not very typical. Usually there's only one rule set that's open. One, maybe two, but in this case, we'll just leave them all open. But you'll need to go into this rule set. Notice this one. This one always, they tell you how many rules are already there. 18 rules were generated, and this rule set 3, 4, 3, 5, and 3. But we're going to write to this first rule set. We get sophisticated. You guys start writing integrations. You're going to write to the ones that start with the INT. But for right now, this is at the implementation layer. This is at my division layer. And this is at my organization layer. So we're going to go into the implementation layer, click on that rule set. Okay. And you'll have to go to the security. And you can say, use this to check out. That's all you have to do. So if you're the administrator, you've added operators, you said they could check out on their security tab. Now you go to the rule set and you set this up for checkout and you save it. Okay, so now once that is saved, now you're ready to do your work. You come back here, let's go ahead and create a case type. I'm going to call mine football video. There we go. Everything should be ready and you should be up and running. All right. You should be able to go and create a stage. I can as for payment, not payment, but select game. Payment. Save that. I can come here and I can say collect information for bill schedule. I can save it. Okay. All right. So now let's say I'm going through this process. I'm creating assets. You need someone else to go and work on something, and there's a rule that was generated that needed to be changed. I go to App Explorer, and I do a refresh. I should see more than that there. Yeah, so here's football. I go to data model. Let's say that I go to process. So I know that I've created this flow rule called games. Open it. Now for the first time you see this checkout. Now I know that I'm secure. I know that I'm working in a team environment and that in order for me to be able to check that rule out, work on it myself and not affect the team, I have to check it out. So now that rule is checked out. Now, everyone else gets the same version of the rule and they can run it, but I'm working on updating it, so I need it in my rule set. Now, watch this. I can go to action and view siblings. And the system will tell me how many copies are in my system. Action and view siblings tells me that there is this rule, a copy of this rule is in the Youth Sports or 10101 rule set, and it's in the author at Tourist or 10101. Remember I was telling you about the checkout, check-in process? Right? So I can see that. Matter of fact, when I go here, it tells me that this flow rule is checked out and that it's in these two rule sets. Now, which one of the rules will be executed? If everything else remains the same, which one of the rules will be executed? The author at Tourist or the youth sports, the copy that's in there? Which one will be executed?
The copy in there.
Yeah, the checked out rule. Why? Because if I go to my profile and I look at the order of my rule set stack, author at tourist is at the top of the stack. So it's going to use that rule. It finds it first in the context and says, if everything else remains the same, I will use this rule that's located there. That's how the check-in, check-out works. It's been a long day. I appreciate your time and attention, and I will see you tomorrow. Same place, same time. Have a wonderful evening.